Been getting a lot of questions lately about the dry foam method and what is it? How do you do it? Why did you come stumble upon this? Why do you think it's better? What is it? Or, and then I had some people say, "Oh, dry foam isn't good. I don't like a dry foam. I like a runny foam." And I thought, "Oh shoot, I need to explain what I'm saying and what I mean by a dry foam." So in this video, what I'm going to try to explain is what a dry foam method is, how I kind of stumbled into it in general, and then why I think it's better and why I appreciate that it doesn't use any buckets. So like the vast majority of probably everyone who either attempts to wash their car or has been washing their car for a long time, the traditional method, as I refer to it as, is you have a steady stream of water, you rinse a car down, and then you would either have your 2-bucket method, or then you would foam a car, then you would go in for your contact wash. And so that would be what I would consider like a wet car, right? You are pre-rinsing the car down and before you put any soap onto the surface of the car, right? But the dry foam method is you don't pre-rinse with a steady flow of water. You are applying foam to a dry car. So you're applying, as thick a foam as possible directly onto a completely dry, dirty car before any water touches it, right? So, as I will refer to it, the traditional method is more of like a rinse. Maybe you foam, maybe you use a double bucket, and then you rinse again. The dry foam method is you foam a dirty car, you let it dwell, then you do your first rinse, and then you can foam again and do your contact wash. So I think this is more of kind of a modern approach to get safer results, and kind of where it came from for me was just sitting and thinking about, for my product brand, I really wanted to develop a car wash soap because everyone uses a car wash soap. And it's kind of the first step in the whole detailing process. And so I wanted to create a soap, but I didn't want to just create another soap that was like the same, because to me, in my opinion, soap is kind of a commodity and it's kind of a race to the bottom as far as price. A lot of brands use it as kind of a loss leader, an introduction to their brand, but there's really not that much difference between soaps. If you're talking pH neutral, traditional car soaps, sure, some people will have like a super thick soap, or some people have more of a runny soap, or some people have a soap that like mega foam soap, or the focus is on making it smell really good, which I think is cool, and the experience around smell. But for me, I wanted something that would work better, because I had that thought of like, okay, how do I make a soap different than every other soap in the market? And then at the same time, this other conversation is going on of like, well, don't touch your car too much because you scratch it. And I found myself personally telling my customers that after I would ceramic coat their car and they'd be talking about how to maintain it, especially people with black cars, I found myself personally saying, well, the more you touch it, the more you run the risk of scratching it and all that, and making it look unsightly, and, going back to everything that I just fixed. And then I had the thought of like, how weird is that? Like, we want to keep our cars clean. We want to keep our cars looking good. And in order to do that, the traditional way is you have to touch the car, but then I'm telling customers to not touch their car. So how are they supposed to not touch their car and keep their car clean? How does that make any sense? And that's what started kind of the journey down developing a soap that could be as much of a touchless soap as possible, and kind of opened up this whole avenue to me of like, whoa, could we make a touchless soap or something that can clean the car really, really good without touching it, or touching it less, which ultimately ended up being the goal. And so that's the route I went down. And then from there, I found, why are we pre-rinsing the car? Like, is it actually better? And I have a YouTube video where I use a Wash Chems product where I pre-rinse half the car and then I do the dry foam on the other half. And that's really the kind of genesis of me starting this whole idea of this dry foam method, or foaming a dry car, is in that video. And I started to have to really rethink the traditional methods that kind of were taught. And I found that to be kind of something that I really enjoyed doing, of like, hey, let's rethink this traditional method of how we do things that people just kind of always take as gospel, but is it actually true? And I've tried to continue that through my whole entire product line personally, and even up to the Picture Perfect Polish, which is the latest product that I've developed. And I'm after SEMA as well. It's interesting to see that a lot of people are still stuck in that traditional method of wanting a polish and a compound, or not quite a glaze. We haven't gone full circle there yet, but a lot of brands and people think that you still need a dedicated compound for the heavy cutting and then a polish to finish out the to finish out what the compound did, and then from there maybe even a primer polish before you ceramic coat the car, right? That's very much the traditional way of thinking. And I found by not thinking the traditional way and kind of investigating, asking a lot of questions, finding the right people, that you could actually have a compound and a polish in one. And I took it a step further by actually making it a primer polish as well, to where you don't need to IPA white before ceramic coating. Now that can get kind of technical and all that, but the point that I'm trying to prove is that sometimes if you just challenge the status quo and investigate a little bit, you can actually get really, really great products that are doing things that people either have never thought about or thought were impossible, right? I could do a whole nother podcast on compounds and polishes, but it really comes down to abrasives. And abrasives are the aluminum oxide inside the compounds or polish or whatever. And that's what the rocks in the formula. And the problem that I think most brands struggle with, what I realize, is that there are literally thousands of different types of abrasives, from cut to coarseness to everything you can imagine. There is a variety of abrasives. And so the hardest part is narrowing down what abrasives to use in the formula. And then from there, percentage of abrasive in the formula. And then how does that abrasive work with everything else in the formula? And so developing a new compound or polish out of the box, I know this is a total tangent, but I think it's interesting, out of the box is incredibly difficult because there's just so many options. You have so many options, and it's you're making a formula, testing it, adjusting, making a formula, testing it, and adjusting it. And so I think that is why we have people that just have compounds and then they have a polish, because to blend those two formulas together to find the right abrasive or abrasive blend that can go together, that can both cut and finish, is incredibly difficult and time consuming. Like, almost, where do I even start? Right. Luckily, the abrasive manufacturers tell you, hey, this does this, this does that, and they can help you narrow it down. They're also sales guys as well. So they want to sell you abrasive. They want to help you create a product. And so they will help you narrow it down. But again, it's like the chemist and the detailer. The chemist knows so much and the detailer knows so much. And it takes both of you working together to create a formula, because what works in the lab doesn't always work in the shop, and vice versa. And so really what I noticed with a polish and a compound, you really need the triangle to come together, which is the abrasive manufacturer and the sales guy there helping you out. And then you need the chemist, and then you need the detailer. And the triangle of those three people working together is ultimately how you can create a really solid formula like we did with the Picture Perfect polish. But it's incredibly difficult. It took me, I think, 6 months to nail down that formula, of working on it pretty much full time. Obviously, there's some downtime and waiting for abrasive to ship. And then right at the 11th hour, when I thought I had the perfect formula, I sent out some testers and I was getting some feedback on A pillars and B pillar plastic that the formula wasn't working great. And so where it was working great everywhere else except for B pillars. And so if you guys remember back to earlier this year, that's why there was an extensive delay towards the end, is I had to rework that formula. I thought I had it perfect and then realized that it didn't work on B pillars and A pillars and that soft black plastic, piano plastic. And I didn't want to release a product that wouldn't work on that. And so I basically had to go back to the drawing board and change the abrasive and find the correct abrasive that would work on paint and plastic. Anyway, that is a massive tangent to explain kind of the same theory that I had going into the soap. So here's where I think, here's how I think the dry foam method works and why it works so good. So when the car is dry, the soap hits the dirt at full strength. So I think even with a pH neutral soap, the Super Soaper, when diluted down, hitting the panel is pH neutral. So that's important because it's not going to break down any waxes, sealants. It's not going to be damaging to the ceramic coating. To contrast that, other brands are developing like a high and low pH system, which can be super damaging to your paint protection, I guess we'll call it as an umbrella term. So, and could be very risky. So high pH can dry out your plastics. A low pH can create staining because it's acidic. And so it could be damaging and it could actually etch your glass really bad. And so me personally, I'm not a huge fan of like that high, low pH washing. It is a method and can be an effective method. It was just something that I wanted to see if we can develop something different to that. And we were able to do that. The Super Soaper in its most concentrated form is a higher pH, but when diluted down into a foam cannon, and then as it's diluted down again, shooting out of the foam cannon, the active foam that's actually hitting the surface of the car when measured is pH neutral. So the end solution is pH neutral hitting the surface of the car. So when the car is dry, the soap hits at full strength, right? Water dilutes the active agents before they even have the ability to start working. So if you are pre-rinsing the car, think about it as like the water is the barrier between the dirt and then what you're trying to do. So you have a little bit of a water barrier that's diluting the foam. If you don't pre-rinse, you don't have that, right? Also, the foam will stick better and longer to dry surfaces. So the longer it can dwell on the surface, the more those concentrated surfactants can actually break the bond between the dirt and the paint, which is the biggest issue. So the bond that is formed between the surface of the car and the dirt on the car is extremely difficult to break. That's why those high and low pH systems work so well, because it helps to break that bond. The Super Soaper does an incredible job breaking that bond. If you have heavy buildup or a lot of road film, it begins to break the bond, but you will still have kind of like a powdery dust left sometimes. And that's when a contact wash comes in that second foam. I've mitigated that a little bit by adding a couple ounces of Pure Magic Cleaner, which is an acid-based cleaner, to the Super Soaper, and that seems to help really break that bond as well, while still keeping it right in that pH neutral. But either way, the dry foam starts loosening that road film, the traffic grime, the dust, any other contamination. And here's the biggest point, is that it gives you less chance of scratching the car. So the more dirt that is removed chemically and the less physical agitation, contact wash is needed, the better, right? So again, just like I used to tell my customers, hey, the more you touch your car, the more you run the risk of scratching it. And then we have things like rinseless washes. It's like, yes, I know rinseless washes are safe, and I know that they have, the technology is there, and I'm a fan of it in certain situations. But ultimately, the risk profile that is there because you are touching the car so much is way greater than just foaming the car, right? And then, not to mention the 2-bucket method, because the 2-bucket method really, again, relies heavily on a contact wash, which the more you touch your car, the bigger risk you have scratching it. The 2-bucket method, I think, assumes that the panel is already mostly clean by just doing that initial pre-rinse. But what I've showed in multiple videos is that it's actually not. The pre-rinse really does basically nothing to the car. So that makes it a total waste of time and water, right? And so the dry foam, using the modern chemistry, you're reducing the risk of swirl marks and scratches. Another big thing is it takes a lot less effort. So you are literally pulling up, probably ideally waiting for your car to cool down a little bit, if you're working in a summer day, but then you are you're foaming a dry car, right? You're not having to bend down. You're not having to fill up buckets. You're not having to fill up anything other than your foam cannon. And this could work with a garden hose foam cannon as well. Doesn't just have to be a pressure washer foam cannon. But you're not rolling around on a stool. You're not reaching down on the panel. A lot of people reach out to me and they have back problems, shoulder problems, elbow problems, knee problems, all these problems. And it's like, and you want to do a rinseless wash? Sounds terrible. What if we could just foam a car, let the chemical do the work, let it dwell for 3 to 5 minutes, rinse it off, see where we're at, maybe foam it again, maybe then do a contact wash, maybe not, rinse it and dry it and go, right? And that's exactly my dry foam wash process. I foam a dry car, I apply the super soaper directly onto a dry surface, right? Giving you that max chemical concentration. It is clean to the dirt. It's breaking it down. Let it dwell for 3 to 5 minutes. I rinse it off. After that, you're getting 70 to 90% of the dirt completely off the car. And it took 5 minutes. Okay. If you need to foam again, which I personally have started to really like to do, I like to foam again. This is kind of what I have, called my like lubrication layer. So because 70 to 90% of the dirt, maybe 100% of the dirt, depending on if your car is ceramic coated or not, that really helps if your car is ceramic coated. But I will foam again, and then because this is my kind of lubrication layer, then I will do a contact wash. So I use a microfiber towel. That's what I like, my orange wash microfiber towels. Light pressure, because the panel is already nearly clean. You don't need any pressure. You're just kind of gliding over the surface to remove that little bit of residue, that little bit of dirt that's still maybe kind of stuck on the panel because that bond of the road film and dirt is so gnarly on the surface of the car. And so you're just barely coming across the surface to remove that. And then you do your final rinse and you dry. And it's easy. This makes a huge difference on black cars, ceramic coated cars. It's so easy. It's way faster than 2-bucket method. You use way less water, less bending over, less setup, and you get more consistent results. And it's great. It's great for DIYers in their driveway. It's great for mobile detailers. It's great for pros doing volume and fleet cars. There are a few things that you want to avoid. And so a lot of people, when I first told them, hey, let the foam dwell for 3 to 5 minutes, they weren't letting the foam dwell long enough. And again, as long as the foam is on the car, you are not going to get water spots if you're using hard water. So let the foam dwell as long as possible. Another mistake people do is they will foam a dry car and then go right in with a contact wash. You don't want to do that. You still have all the dirt on the car. So foam a dry car, let it dwell, rinse. If you need to touch your car, foam a second time and then do it then. This does work. It makes your pH neutral, your standard pH neutral soap, work better, but it doesn't have the right surfactants in it. You really need to use a soap that is meant for this. But even if you're just using a regular pH neutral soap, you will still get better results than doing a 2-bucket method. You will save more time and be less exhausted than a rinseless wash. So I think dry foaming is the future of safe car washing. And I really enjoy it. I think you get a better result. I think you get a faster result. I think you get a more enjoyable result. I think it's not as time consuming. It's not as labor intensive, and you get a better result. So that's why I like it. So I thought I would summarize kind of what a dry foam method is. Hopefully that's helpful. Of course, if you have any questions, you can leave a comment below and I'll get to those. But yeah, you can check everything out at jimbosdetailing.com if you want to support the channel, you want to support the podcast. I am super grateful for that. Yeah, I'll see you guys over at jimbosdetailing.com. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one. See ya.